Welcome to this lecture on Where the Mind is Without Fear by Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore is one of the greatest modern Indian English writers. He was a poet, philosopher, musician, writer and educationist of eminence. Now, this particular chapter, it is the 35th poem of the work titled Gitanjali, for which he was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1913. Now, what is this poem all about? The poem is about a prayer. The writer, the poet, he makes a fervent prayer to the Almighty God to awaken India into that freedom of heaven. So, he wants India to be a heaven of freedom, and what kind of a heaven of freedom he wants it to be? He says, where the mind is without fear. So, he dreams of an India which will be a heaven of freedom, and he explains the concept of freedom in this chapter. He tells us that he dreams of an India where the people will live a fearless life. Now, what is this fear he is talking about? He is talking about the fear of oppression, the fear of enslavement, exploitation, which Indians suffered at the hands of the Britishers during the British rule. So, he dreams of an India where people will lead a very dignified life without any fear, and where the head is held high. Now, what do you mean by this head is held high? That is, the Indians, he wants to live a life of dignity and pride. They should be proud of their rich culture and heritage. Next, he says, where knowledge is free. Yes, when he says where knowledge is free, he means that there should be easy access, free access to knowledge, irrespective of any caste, creed, yes, or other considerations, which means that every individual should have equal opportunities. So, knowledge is considered to be the only light which can dispel the darkness of ignorance. So, darkness of ignorance can be dispelled only by knowledge. So, he wants that India should be a land of people who would lead a very free, fearless, dignified life, who will have equal opportunities, who will have easy access to knowledge. Yes, and next he says, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic wall. In the first three lines he talks about India, and now in the fourth line he talks about the world order. Yes, he says we cannot live in isolation, and this world, if it has to be a better place to live in, if it has to be a happy world, so all the narrow domestic walls should be removed. So, what is a wall? Wall is anything that divides man from man. So, what is a wall he is alluding to? He is referring to the walls of the superstitions, the beliefs, yes, and the blind beliefs that people have, yes, the intolerance, the all kinds of social evils which separates man from man is a wall. Communalism is also kind of wall. So, he wants India to be free from all these narrow domestic walls. He dreams of an undivided India. So, these are the words, this glossary is given, you can refer to the words. Yes. Next, where words come out from the depth of truth. He wants Indians to be very honest in their speech, in their words, in their actions. So, there has to be transparency in logical thinking. This is what he says when he says that where words come out from the depth of truth. Every word that Indian utters should be very truthful, genuine, and not artificial or any kind of deceit. Where tireless striving stretches its arm towards perfection. Now, in this line, tireless striving is personified as an individual who is stretching its arm towards perfection. So, what does he mean? He means that every Indian has to be hardworking and industrious. See, without hard work, you will not achieve anything in your life. वो कहते हैं no pain, no gain. So, one has to be very hardworking in every endeavor of one's life. So, tireless striving is referred to as a, it is personified here. What is the personification? When a non-living thing is given all the attributes of a living thing, that is called personification. It is a figure of speech and it is used for the beautification of language. So, where tireless striving stretches its arm towards perfection. So, what sort of a hard work we have to aim? We have to be very industrious, we have to work very hard and achieve perfection in whatever we do. The next line is, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habits. It is a beautiful metaphor. Another figure of speech is employed here, it has been used here. So, what is a metaphor? Metaphor is a comparison between two different things which have some commonalities between them. So, that is called a metaphor. So, reason has been compared to a clear stream. Now, what is a clear stream? Clear stream has very crystal clear water. So, Indians must have a logical thinking, they must have a reasoning, their ability of reasoning should be as clear, as pure, as lucid, like the stream, the water of a stream. Yes, and what sort of, it should be ever flowing, that has to be a continuity, which means that reason has to be very, very progressive. See, what is water? When water flows, it means that it is progressing. So, their reason also has to be as progressive, like it has to be progressive like the clear stream which keeps on flowing, right, and has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habits. Now, what are the dead habits he is alluding to? He is alluding to the dead habits of all kinds of negativity, all kinds of negative thoughts, whether it is communalism, whether it is intolerance, whether it is hatred, cruelty, any kind of negativity. It is referred to as a dead habit. Why is it called a dead habit? It is called a dead habit because it is most unproductive. It will not be productive. It is like a desert where it is full of sand. Can you grow anything on a sand? No, you cannot grow anything on sand. So, dead habits are also like the sand of a desert. It is most unprogressive. It is regressive. You can call it regressive. Regressive means which brings about a kind of backwardness in our living. So, that is what he wants to say, that Indians must have a reasoning, they must inculcate, yes, this reasoning which should be ever flowing like the clear stream, right. Okay, next we have, where the mind is led forward by thee. Now, this is a fervent prayer to God the Almighty. God is supreme and he believes that only God can redeem India. It is his faith in that belief. Yes, he has its firm faith that only God can redeem India, because India had gone through a very long spell of foreign rule which had paralyzed its system. Now, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action. So, only God can make us think, act and speak, yes, progressively. If he is, remember in the Mahabharata how Arjun and the Pandavas, they won the battle of Kurukshetra. Why? Because Lord Krishna was their charioteer. So, whoever is led and guided by God will always be blessed, and they will always succeed in every endeavor. So, he says, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action. So, he wants God to guide the Indians to lead a very purposeful and a very useful and a and a successful life, yes, by way of good thoughts, good action. Widening thought means very progressive thoughts, very progressive actions which will ensure the progress, growth and development of India. Into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. So again he invokes God and he prays to him that you alone can be the emancipator of Indians, right? Heaven of freedom. He requests God, he implores to God to make India a heaven of freedom where Indians will lead a life of happiness. They will lead a life of fearlessness, a life of pride, a life of hard work. So he wants Indians to lead a life of honesty, open-mindedness and progress, industriousness. So this is the fervent appeal that he makes to God. Now these are some of the questions which I have put. You can refer to them whenever you feel free. Now the next topic is Tryst with Destiny by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. We all know who Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was. He was the first Prime Minister of Free India and is also known as the architect of modern India. Now this particular lesson is a historic speech which he had delivered before the Constituent Assembly on the eve of independence. We all know that we attained independence on 15th August 1947. So in the midnight hour of 14th August, yes, 1947, he delivered a lecture. He delivered this historic speech to the Constituent Assembly. Now what is this speech all about? It is again an appeal to the countrymen that how after attaining independence we have to take up the responsibility of dedicating ourselves into the service of the country. So the members of the Constituent Assembly, they were addressed by Jawaharlal Nehru. He says, long years ago we made a tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge, not wholly or in full measure, but very substantially. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awaken to life and freedom. So this is the background. He tells that in few hours, India, when it was midnight hour, and so the Indians, all were asleep. Yes, because it was a midnight hour he was addressing. So he speaks about the independence that India is going to attain, that is freedom from the foreign rule. A moment comes, but rarely in history, when we step out from the old to the new, when an age ends and when the soul of a nation long suppressed finds utterance. So India has attained independence. It has got freedom. What does that mean? That the foreign rule has ended. All kinds of enslavement, all kinds of exploitations have stopped, and now India finds utterance, means the voice of Indians will now be heard. It will be acknowledged. It is fitting that at this solemn moments we take the pledge of dedication. So it is a very solemn moment, very sacred moment. Why it is a sacred moment? Because we are getting independence after centuries of foreign rule, and this moment is one of the most solemn moment. It is a very sacred, a holy moment, and at this holy moment we have to take a promise. We have to make a promise. The pledge means promise. So what is the promise that Jawaharlal Nehru wants the members of the Constituent Assembly to take? He wants them to take the pledge of dedication. Yes, they have to devote themselves to the service of India and the people, to the still larger cause of humanity, and they have to serve India, and at the same time when they serve India, they will be serving the entire humanity, because no nation can live in isolation. At the dawn of history, India started on her unending quest. So it was almost 200 years of foreign rule. It was a long journey which India had undertaken. And what was the quest? Quest means search. What was the search? Why did Indians take a long journey? It was a long journey to attain freedom, to make India, to free their homeland from the shackles and the clutches of the foreign rule. And trackless centuries are filled with her striving and grandeur of her success and her failure. So, during this long journey, India had suffered many failures, and it had also experienced success also. Through good and ill fortune alike, she has never lost sight of that quest or forgotten the ideals which gave her strength. But in spite of the failures, India never lost sight of its lofty principles. What were the principles he is talking about? Adarsh jisko kehte hain. Principle means adarsh. What were the ideals that Indians lived up to? They were truth and non-violence. Yes, such profound principles were always, yes, followed by Indians in spite of, yes, the failures, in spite of the sufferings and exploitations which they suffered at the hands of the Britishers. We end today a period of ill fortune, and India discovers herself again. So, it is a moment, it is an opportunity for every Indians to, yes, to discover the potential within them. The achievement we celebrate today is but a step and opening of opportunity to the greater triumphs and achievements that await us. So, this is an opportunity for a gateway to all triumphs, to victory, to attain, to achieve all our dreams, to realize all our dreams. Are we brave enough and wise enough to grasp this opportunity and accept the challenge of the future? So, this opportunity, yes, what is the opportunity he is referring to? The freedom at midnight which India is going to receive will be a gateway. It will be an opportunity for all the Indians to, yes, to serve the country and to take up the challenges, to redefine their future, yes, to redefine their future with their good and very positive endeavors. Freedom and power brings responsibility. Yes, this is a very important message that he conveys through this speech. He tells the members of the Constituent Assembly that God has bestowed freedom on us, and this freedom has to be, it brings responsibility in its train. There cannot be any privileges without responsibility. Responsibility rests upon this assembly, a sovereign body representing the sovereign people of India. So, the members of the Constituent Assembly are the representatives, elected representatives of India, and as elected representatives, they have a duty towards the betterment, towards the improvement of life, the quality of life of Indians. So, before the birth of freedom, we have endured all the pains of labor and hearts are heavy with memory of the sorrow. And then he tells us about the sufferings which we had suffered. I'll stop here and will resume the lecture after a short break. Welcome back to this lesson. Yeah, we were discussing about the responsibilities. So, there cannot be any privileges without responsibility, and he also, Jawaharlal Nehru, he refers to all the kinds of pains which Indians had suffered, and it was a very sorrowful recollections, he says. Some of those pains continue even now. Nevertheless, the past is over, and it is the future that beckons to us now. That future is not one of ease or resting, but of incessant striving. So, he says that Indians, the members of the Constituent Assembly, they have to dedicate themselves to the service of Indians, right? And they have to constantly work hard. Striving means to work hard. Incessant means without stopping. For what? To fulfill the pledge. What is the pledge we have taken? To free India, yes, to free our homeland, and to make India a happy place to live in for the Indians. The service of India means the service of the millions who suffer. Yes. So, he says, what is this service? What are the efforts that the members of the Constituent Assembly have to make? They have to serve the millions who are suffering. Who are the sufferers? The poor, the ignorant, who don't have easy access to any kind of opportunity. So, it is stated in our constitution also that India is an egalitarian society where every individual will be equal before law. So, he wants the members of the Constituent Assembly to rededicate their lives to the service of Indians, to help, to help people overcome poverty, to mitigate means to lessen, mitigate ignorance, and to eradicate, yes, inequality. Everybody should have access to equal opportunity, right. So, the ambition of the greatest man of our generation has been to wipe every tear from every eye. So, who is this greatest man Nehru talks about? Nehru, the greatest man of our generation is Mahatma Gandhi. Yes, he was the greatest. He's called Mahatma. Why? Because he was a great soul. And why was he a great soul? Because he had only the betterment of India in his mind. He always thought about betterment of India, and it was his dream that every individual should be happy, that maybe beyond us, as long as there are tears and suffering, so long our work will not be over. So, the members of the Constituent Assembly, they have to rededicate their services in the service of humanity, right, for the betterment of the life and living of the Indians. And how do they do that? They have to work for the eradication of all kinds of evils that were prevalent in the country, and so that every individual leads a very happy and prosperous, peaceful, yes, life. And so, we have to labor and to work to give reality to our dreams. So, hard work alone can help them realize their dream. So, what is the dream he is alluding to? He is alluding to the dream of, yes, having a happy and a peaceful world order and a peaceful life in India. Those dreams are for India, but they are also for the world. And then he says that no country can be happy in isolation. Can we be happy if our neighbors are in trouble? Never. So, no country can be happy in isolation. For all the nations and peoples are too closely knit together today for any one of them to imagine that it can live apart. So, he dreams of an India which will be undivided, where he dreams of a world order where every human being will be happy. So, he wants he wants the members of the Constituent Assembly to make such efforts which will contribute to the world order, which will contribute to the peace of the world. Peace has been said to be indivisible, so is freedom, so is prosperity now, and so also is disaster in this one world that can no longer be split into isolated fragments. So, humanity is one. Nations may be different, but humanity is one, and prosperity, yes, happiness, yes, joy, yes, and these are all the common property of humanity. So, then he says to the people of India, whose representatives we are, we appeal to join us with faith and confidence in this great adventure. So, he requests all the members of the Constituent Assembly who are the representatives of India, yes, to join, to work with faith and confidence, to embark on this adventure of serving India and the humanity at large to establish world peace and order. This is no time for petty and destructive criticism. It is not meant for complaining. It is not meant for, this moment of freedom is not meant to speak, to complain, to criticize, yes, about the shortcomings of the society and life. It is the time for resolution. So, what sort of a resolution? We have to build the noble mansion of free India. So, he wants to India, he sees India as a big mansion. What is a big mansion? A huge palatial building where all her children, they dwell happily. So, he dreams of an India where every Indian, yes, lives a life of happiness and prosperity. The appointed day has come. What is the appointed day? The appointed day is 15th August 1947. Yes, the day appointed by destiny. So, destiny has blessed us with this great day. Yes, with this day of freedom, India stands forth again after long slumber and struggle. So, India has fought back the centuries of foreign rule and it has awakened. Yes, it has awakened. It was sleeping and it was suffering the struggle, awake, vital, free and independent. So, India has, at the stroke of midnight, when India attains freedom, India becomes free. Yes, and it is free in all, it is free in letter and spirit. Now, it will have its own governance. The past clings on to us still in some measure and we have to do much before we redeem the pledges. So, how do they redeem the pledges? Now, what do you mean by redeem the pledges? It means how do you fulfill your promises? What are the promises? The promise is that our homeland will be freed and it will be made a heaven, yes, for the Indians to live a peaceful and a happy progressive life. Yet the turning point is past and history begins anew for us, the history which we shall live and act others will write about them. So, the Constituent Assembly, the members, the representatives of the country of Indians, they will script a new story, a new saga of happiness, of prosperity. Yes, the history which is past will be forgotten. Why? It has to be forgotten. Why? Because it was a history of suffering. It was a history of exploitation. So, he admonishes or he advises the members of the Constituent Assembly to forget the past and to turn over a new leaf. This is an idiomatic expression. What do you mean by turn over a new leaf? Means to begin life, yes, in a new way, to renew life. So, this is how he tells this is what he tells the members of the Constituent Assembly. It is a fateful moment for us in India, for all Asia and for the world. A new star rises, the star of freedom in the east. A new hope comes into being, a vision long cherished materializes. So, freedom is like seen like a star, yes, and it is the star of hope. It is like a pole star which will guide, yes, Indians through the path of progress, right. May the star never set and that hope never be betrayed. So, the star of hope which has lit, yes, at the dawn, at the midnight, at the stroke of midnight. What is the star? The star of freedom. It will never set. So, you know, sun is also a star. So, he is alluding it will never set. This star of freedom will always be aglow. It will always show Indians the path of success and prosperity. We rejoice in that freedom even though clouds surround us and many of our people are sorrow stricken. There is sufferings still. There is poverty, but even in that poverty we will celebrate our freedom and difficult problems encompass it. But freedom brings responsibilities and burdens and we have to face them in the spirit of a free and disciplined people. So, what is important? How can you enjoy freedom? You can enjoy freedom only when you are disciplined. One has to, every individual, every Indian has to resolve to lead a very disciplined life so that he enjoys freedom in letter and spirit. And then he says, on this day our first thoughts go to the architect of freedom, the father of our nation, who embodying old spirit of India held aloft the torch of freedom. So, again he remembers fondly, he acknowledges, yes, the great services, yes, of Mahatma Gandhi, right, and he had, in fact, he had held the torch of freedom. We have often been unworthy followers of his and strayed from his message, but not only we, but succeeding generations will remember this message and bear the imprint in their hearts of this great son of India, magnificent in his faith and strength and courage and humility. So, he says it is his conviction, it is his belief, it is a strong belief, it is Nehru's conviction that posterity किसको कहते हैं? आने वाले जो पीढ़ी है, the subsequent generations, they will remember and they will cherish the great ideals which were which were lived and propagated by Mahatma Gandhi, who has been called the architect of freedom, right. And then he says, our next thoughts must be of the unknown volunteers and soldiers of freedom, who without praise or reward have served India even unto death. Then he again remembers the soldiers, the great soldiers who have sacrificed their life for the attainment of freedom. We think also of our brothers and sisters who have been cut off from us by political boundaries. He again refers to the people who have been separated. Many of our relatives got separated because of the partition. So he is pained to, and he says that even those brothers and sisters who have been separated because of the partition will be remembered for their contribution to the progress of the country. They are of us and will remain of us whatever may happen. So partition cannot divide hearts. It can separate territories, but it will never divide hearts of Indians, right. Okay. And then finally he says, the future beckons to us, whither do we go and what shall be our endeavor? To bring freedom and bring opportunity to the common man, to the peasants and workers of India. So what would be their endeavors? What would be the efforts that the members of the Constituent Assembly are expected to take? And this he tells. What are the things? He says, equal opportunity to every common man. Yes, peasants, workers of India will be taken care of. To fight and end poverty, poverty will be ended. Ignorance and diseases, good health and good education will be their top priority. To build up a prosperous, democratic and progressive nation, and to create social, economic and political institutions which will ensure justice and fullness of life. So many social, many political, economic institutions and bodies will be constituted, will be established, so that every issue of justice, injustice, or to ensure that justice is established, and every person, every individual, they live a life of happiness and fulfillment, right. And then finally we have hard work ahead. He says this is achievable only through hard work. There is no resisting for any of us till we redeem our pledge in full, till we make all the people of India what destiny intended them to be. So we cannot encourage communalism and narrow-mindedness. So these will be the priorities, these should be the priorities of the members of the Constituent Assembly as representatives of India. That is to eradicate poverty, to give equal opportunity to every individual, right, to end communalism, to end every kind of narrow-mindedness, because communalism, narrow-mindedness, these are dangerous things. Why? Because they never allow progress. To the nations and the people of the world we send greetings and pledge ourselves to cooperate with them in furthering peace. So he says that they want to, he requests the members of the Constituent Assembly to join him, yes, to join him in spreading, in the dissemination of peace, freedom and democracy, not only in India, but also in the entire world, right. So that this planet Earth becomes a better place to live. And to India, our much loved motherland, the ancient, the eternal and the ever new, we pay our reverent homage and rebind ourselves afresh to her services. So these are the, he says that finally he dedicates their services to the service of India. Now these are some of the questions which has been shown to you, which are being displayed on the presentation. You can go through them and you can also answer the questions. Now we take up the final this thing, and that is the next topic that we are going to take is Hero by R.K. Narayan. Hero is a very interesting lesson. It is a very, it's a short story, and it is written by R.K. Narayan. R.K. Narayan, I hope you are all familiar with. He is one of the greatest modern writers of short stories. His Malgudi days are very, very famous. So we will begin with the story. Yes, see, this is a hero by R.K. Narayan. So who is this hero? Yes, it is a short story about a small boy, a 9-year-old boy who is called Swami. This is a story on the family dynamics, and yes, we'll just read through the story and understand it. Now, Swami's father, one day he reads a newspaper article. Father looked over the newspaper he was reading under the hall lamp and said, "Swami, listen to this. News is to hand of the bravery of a village lad who, while returning home by the jungle path, came face to face with a tiger. The paragraphs describe the fight the boy had with the tiger and his flight up a tree." So, he narrates an instance which he has read in the newspaper article. Who narrates to whom? The father narrates to Swami. Swami is the main character of this short story titled Hero. So, the father has read a article in the newspaper which describes the bravery of a small boy. Yes, what does he do? What is the bravery that he has done? He has encountered a tiger and he has got him killed by the village folks. So, the father wants that his son should also be, equally brave. So, he says, Swami said, "I think he must have been very strong and grown up person." So, when Swami hears this description about the boy who had bravely encountered a tiger, so immediately he tells his father that the boy must have been a grown up boy, right? The father, he says, no, it is not so. Yes, he has been very courageous, and so Swami, he disputes, he argues with his father. Now, we will continue in the next lecture. Yes, this lesson will be continued in the next lecture. Stay tuned, please. So, Swami disagrees with his father, and why he disagrees? Because he thinks that he is not happy about the appreciation that his father gives to that boy, yes, that brave boy. He is not happy, and he says he may be courageous, but always courage is not everything. And then he says, what if I have a courage? Yes, Swami says, if I have courage, I can be overpowered by a tiger. So, he does not have the strength to encounter a tiger. So, then the father says, okay, if you claim that you are courageous, then the father asks Swami that he has to sleep alone in his office. Swami used to sleep by the side of his grandmother, yes, and she used to narrate stories to bedtime stories to him. So, his father, he wants his son to become more bold, more courageous, and to make him courageous, the father asks Swami to sleep in his office all alone. Now, Swami is very, very afraid of sleeping alone. He had always slept beside his granny in the passage, and any change in this arrangement kept him trembling and awake all night. He hoped at first that his father was only joking. Now, when his father asked him to sleep in the office all alone, he thought the father was merely joking, but he was not joking, he was very serious. Why? Because he wanted his son to become very courageous, and he wanted to wean him away from the habit of sleeping by the side of his grandmother. We are going to admit even elders in our cricket club hereafter. We are buying brand new bats and balls. Our captain has asked me to tell you. So, when the father asks him to sleep alone, he tries to change the topic and he tells his father about the cricket club. The father is very, very firm. He is determined, and Swami realized that the matter had gone beyond his control. The father says, you must sleep alone hereafter. That is, the father tells him that in whatever excuses he may make, but he is supposed to sleep alone. Yes, Swami is greatly disturbed that he has to sleep alone at night, and that too in a office, in the office room of his father. So he tries to postpone it, and then he tells his father that he will start sleeping the next month. From the next month I will sleep alone, father. No, you must do it now. It is disgraceful sleeping beside granny or mother like a baby. So the father says, no, you are no more a baby. He tells Swami that you are no more a baby, and you should not be sleeping by the side of your mother or a granny. You are in the second form, and I don't like the way you are being brought up. And the father is angry that now he has to outgrow his habits, he said, and looked at his wife who was rocking the cradle. So mother was there. She was listening to the conversation between the father and the son. No, I don't mean you, father said. If you mean that your mother is spoiling him, tell her so, and don't look at me, she said, and turned away. So immediately the child, the son, Swami, he looks at his mother. Right? Why does he look at his mother? Because he expects her intervention. He wants her to intervene. But then father is firm, and he has resolved that he will make Swami sleep alone in his office room. Swami's father sat gloomily gazing at the newspaper on his lap. Swami rose silently and tiptoed away to his bed in the passage. Granny was sitting up in her bed and remarked, boy, are you already feeling sleepy? Don't you want a story? Swami made wild gesticulations to silence his granny, but that good lady saw nothing. So Swami threw himself on his bed and pulled the blanket over his face. Now what did Swami do? He played a trick. What did he do? He went to sleep early that evening so that he could avoid this distressful job of sleeping alone in the office room. So where did he go and sleep? He slept by the side of his granny. So he went to bed early that evening. Granny said, don't cover your face, are you really asleep? And what did he do? He pulled his sheet over his face, so that, why did he do that? To avoid his father's admonitions, father's scoldings. Please shut up, granny, don't talk to me, and don't let anyone call me even if the whole house is on fire. If I don't sleep at once, I shall perhaps die. So this child, finally what happens is that he sleeps, and he is forced to sleep, and what happens, he sees all the images of ghosts, right, because his friends had told him that there are ghosts who are living close to the office room, and then he gets visions of the ghosts, and he's so afraid. And finally what happens is that he sees something is moving in the dark of night. He sees something moving, some object moving, and suddenly he was so afraid that he was sleeping on a bench. Now later he shifted his bedding under the bench. He slept beneath the bench, so that to avoid the fear of ghosts. And he was mortally afraid of ghosts, because his friends had said that ghosts, they live near the office room. So to avoid that, he slept beneath the bench, and finally he sees that something was moving, and when he saw something moving, he clinged to that object, and he pierced, he bit matlab kaatna. He bit the leg of that person who had it was a burglar. You know who a burglar is? A thief who breaks into a house, who breaks into a building, is called a burglar. So it happened to be the feet of a burglar, and he clung to that the burglar's feet, and immediately he could bravely trap that burglar. And next morning, immediately what happened, there was so much of noise that father, the servant, granny, mother, they all came, and people of the neighborhood, they also came, and they caught the thief. And next day, you know, the commissioner of police, he also came and congratulated Swami for his heroic, you know, deed of overpowering a burglar, and that burglar incidentally was the most wanted thief of the town. So, Swami proved his father wrong, and he proved that he was a very courageous and a brave boy. He proved himself that he is the hero of the town. So, this is the short story which hero is all about. You can read through the text, and the exercises are also given at the end of all. The glossary is also given. Yes, please go through them and you can understand it better. I hope you have all understood. I have tried my level best to make it simple, right. So, please read through all the glossary which has been given and the exercises. Please solve the exercises. Yes, I hope you have understood the chapters well.